Welcome to the More About Jesus podcast. My name's Al Martens, but this time I'm not joined by Daniel Dunbar, my dear cousin, because this is a, special episode. We're planning on doing more of this, so I'll tell you right up front that I want to do interviews with Christian people that I know and love. Not necessarily all ones I know, I guess, but it's under the belief and the understanding that I think that ordinary everyday Christians, not that my guests will be boring or ordinary, but non-famous, let's use that term. Christians they make the world go round. They're the ones that are going to change the world, and those are the grace stories I want to hear and the Jesus stories I want to hear, and I think you do too. So anyway, today my guest is Mike Magnus, a friend of mine. How long have we been friends, Mike?
At least 10 years, probably 12 now.
At least 10.
Well, I mean, I was in North Battleford for 10. I knew you for at least that. And then I guess I still knew you when I was doing my internship.
Yeah,
which was, I guess since 2003.
Oh, no.
That's almost 20 years now. Getting close.
No, I feel super old.
You feel old. As you should. You should feel old.
Anyway, so let's start with just some friendly conversation. What, you can tell me all the details of your personal life, your address, your phone number.
Yeah, I could do that.
Or you could just give me the basics. I don't know. You don't have to go deep. And I'm not going to probe for dirt. I'm not like, we were watching, one of my favorite things on YouTube to watch is when they, is funny compilations. I think Jennifer Lawrence is one of the funniest people in the world. So we were watching one of those, and she was on that Piers. What's his name? He's a British guy who's been on shows.
I think I know who you're talking about.
Yeah. He just asks jerk questions. He's asking all these probing questions about all her faults. So apparently you have all these faults, and then is this true? Is this true? He keeps rattling off all these things like, what a loser. Can't believe he's doing this. Yeah. I'm never going to do that. Anyways, what about who is Mike Magnus, and what's your life about right now?
Okay. Well, do you want the short version or do you want the long version of how we got where we are? What's that?
You can do a medium.
Medium version? Okay. Well, right now, well, I guess I don't even know what I am right now. So my wife and I and our 3 kids are in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan right now. My wife is finishing up her master's of physical therapy. So she's on placements right now, and she'll be done that in middle of December. And then if she passes a national exam, a written exam in November, then I think that means she gets licensed.
And she is a master. So she, will that be her official title? Master physio?
I'll probably call her that.
Does she get a belt, like a black belt or something?
No, it's a master's degree. So it's the step up from the bachelor degree.
I'd insist they call me master after that.
I think I might just call her that from now on. I mean, the reality is that my wife is objectively better than all of us. So she's very amazing, actually. Yeah,
I agree.
I mean, I know I'm not just saying this because I love her and I think that she's awesome. This is like an objective fact. She is better than all of us in almost every way, and we don't deserve her. But because she is gracious to us, she suffers our our presence. So anyway, we were in North Battleford. I was the associate pastor at a church in North Battleford, the one that Al used to attend.
Mm-hmm.
And we were there for 10 years. And we moved to Saskatoon so that she could get her master's of physical therapy, which she's finishing off. So I left my job in North Battleford for the unknown. And that's where we've kind of been living in the last couple years, since 2018. Didn't have anything lined up. We had something we thought was lined up for me to do, but that fell through. And so I've just been doing part-time work whenever I can find. Right now I've got 3 part-time jobs, and taking care of the kids and the house and the wife so that she can study. And that's basically what we've been doing for the past couple of years. So
right.
I miss being a pastor. I want to get back into that, but it's really hard in the middle of COVID for any churches to be able to want to bring on staff at this time.
It's such a state of flux right now with any of that.
Yeah. So, I mean,
I don't know how the guys do it.
We're living in temporary in general, and then COVID has made everything even more temporary. So,
So,
yeah,
we'll talk more about that stuff, but I want to know what do you do for fun right now? Like, what kind of nerdy passion do you have? Or do you even get time for that with all your things going on? But you do have some time to play a game or something, right?
Yeah, I do. Most of the stuff that I do a lot of the time now is I can't do online multiplayer things because I have to be able to drop whatever I'm doing at the drop of a hat in order to be able to deal with either a child or something. Right. So I play a lot of turn-based mobile games or things that I can just stop whenever. I recently got Torchlight 3.
Love Torchlight series. They're great.
Yeah. Torchlight 2 is my ultimate dungeon delver as far as I'm concerned. Way better than Diablo ever was.
Actually, you know what? I think I will
fight.
Too.
I will fight you on that.
Well, you don't have to. I think
not
like
you, but I'll fight anybody on that.
there's a cuteness to it that I like.
Yeah, it's and I think the skill balances and stuff are pretty.
You played Diablo 2 quite a bit, right?
I did before I discovered Torchlight.
And it has a new version of it now, and I bought the old one and tried it, and I stopped very soon.
Yeah.
Because I don't like redoing stuff.
Fair enough.
So I had all this stuff I'm building and whatever, and then I went out and died. My character gets killed, and I have nothing. There's just there's 40 zombies or whatever, all hovering around all my stuff. Yeah. Well, I'll never get it.
Yeah.
I just gave up. I said I can't. That's not the game for me.
Yeah. So I mean, I just recently got Torchlight 3 because it was on for 70% off, and I can afford $11. It's about all I can afford right now. But
I get a lot of those. That's deals. What I got. Steam
but deals. my computer is garbage. So we did buy my wife a computer for school, and so I use her computer when she's not.
Oh, so once she's a master, she won't need a computer.
No, she won't need it anymore. No.
So you can have it.
So I can use that. I like playing Dice Throne. My son likes playing Dice Throne with me.
Does he still only play Ninja?
No, he'll play anything. We haven't had a chance to play for a while because now that school started up again. I have 3 kids, an 8-year-old daughter and 6-year-old twins, boy and a girl. For anybody who cares.
I miss your twins so much.
Yeah, you do, because they are also objectively better than the rest. No, they're not. Never mind. I love them, but they are sometimes difficult because they're 6.
And they're twins.
And they're twins. Yeah. So, what else do I like? I like playing turn-based mobile games. I still play Pokemon Go because I'm a nerd like that, I guess.
A lot of people do.
Yeah. I do a lot of comic book reading, mostly manga. Manga. I don't know how you pronounce it. So I'll just go with. I
just started buying the Alita Battle Angels series.
Oh, yeah.
So there was
I watched
the original movie. Art.
Yeah.
The originals, for a while, I could only buy it in these big novel things that were whatever. But now they're starting to release them by single, a series of 8. I think they're going to do or something like that. So I started buying those as they release them. Nice. I really like them actually.
Yeah. I read them on the internet for free. Yeah. Because that's what I can afford. I am. Yeah. That's what I can afford.
Yeah, no, I got a son that has too much manga, so.
Yeah,
this is
no, I know. I'm fully aware of the kind of stuff.
Once every month or 2 months, I could get one. That's about all I can do too.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. So I like turn-based too, because of that. You can just get up. I used to play lots of Civilization and stuff, and you just can stop literally any time and just get up and leave it.
Yeah, and I have to do single player. I don't have the time to sit around for I think I had WoW, World of Warcraft, for a while before we had kids, and that was fine because I could sit for an hour or two, no big deal, if I didn't have anything else going on. Now I never have that much time in a sitting to be able to do something. And I can't do multiplayer because I can't be like, okay, well, I'm going to leave.
Yeah. Leave
In
me
the middle
alone
of
for
something.
2 hours.
Yeah.
Feed yourselves, 6-year-olds.
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
They would.
I'm
They would
kidding.
eat. They would feed themselves, but I would have to deal with all of the repercussions of the things that they ate.
All the sugar, yeah.
Oh yeah, that's all they would eat.
Fruit Loops.
Yeah. Yeah. I like role playing games.
Yeah, so we are in a RPG group together, sort of.
Yeah. Yeah. Right now we're playing a game that Al doesn't like because he doesn't understand it, which is fair.
It's just too deep in the whole lore thing for me.
The world is too complex. The rules are quite simple once you figure out what it's like. I think the system itself is like super awesome. It's probably the best system I've ever played.
Legends of Five Rings, or the L5.
Legend of the Five Rings, yeah.
Yeah.
The 4th edition, the one that before Wizards of the Coast bought it and ruined it. But yeah, no, they tried to port it into D&D and it just didn't work because it's the system's so completely different. But anyway, it's the best system, but the world itself is so complex that unless you're willing to immerse yourself into it, it's hard to get into, to understand how you're supposed to act.
To do it well, I'd have to like study.
You'd have to read the whole thing.
Yeah, and I can't study.
Yeah.
I just don't have that in me.
So we're playing that right now while Al is taking a break.
Then we're doing a D&D campaign.
And then we're going to do a D&D campaign.
Yeah. Which should be cool.
Yeah, but it's hard because like I'm running this game, and it looked, I think like the last time we played last night, but before that it was like 3 weeks before we actually got together because either I was working at night or one of our other players, his son was sick or colicky or things like that. So I mean, the thing I love about our group is that we've started off by telling everybody we love this, we love playing role-playing games, but this is the least important thing out of all of the other things that could possibly happen in your life. So this will always get dropped if something else comes up. And so we've just, the fact that we're okay with that, we know that that's going to happen. So it's not a big deal. It does mean that things take a lot longer to actually get through.
Yeah, but it's all pretend, and family comes first.
Yeah.
Maybe someday we can all live in the same town and do a nightly thing or weekly thing. Nightly, every night.
Yeah, so we're doing that. Yeah, so we're doing this over Discord actually. For anybody who's wanting to know how we're making this work, we're doing it all over Discord because
we all live in different towns. Well, me and Frank live in North Battleford.
Yeah, two of you in North Battleford, 2 people in Regina, and then me in Saskatoon, halfway between.
Crazy. The wonder of Discord. Okay, tell me your Jesus story.
Jesus story.
But it can be short because I have another question and we can't go too long because I want to keep these interviews less than an hour. Okay,
fair enough. We're probably talking about too many other things already.
Well, that's why we talked before we started recording. So
fair enough.
Some of it out.
My Jesus story, I think I would say the short version of my Jesus story is I grew up in a Christian home. I'm a pastor's kid. And so I always grew up. I don't remember a time that I didn't know God. But, growing up in a pastor's home, you kind of get to a point where you're like, okay, is this my faith or is this my parents' faith that I'm just living because I want to keep the peace, so on and so forth. So I actually went to Bible college to see whether or not I actually believed what I thought I did. And I came out of that with yep, this makes the most sense to me. And it was there. I know you're trying to avoid Christianese and stuff, but it was there that God called me to ministry. I don't really know how else to explain it.
That's not your calling in life. You could use Christianese all you want.
Yeah. Well, I want to be respectful to the podcast, but it was one of those things.
It's just a thing we're trying to do.
I know.
Cut through some of that stuff, but that's part of what I want to talk to you about once you got your story going. So don't let me interrupt you.
Yeah. So so it was one of those things where it was just this felt right, and anything else that I did always felt like something was missing. But whenever I was ministering in the church in some capacity, it was just like, okay, this is where I fit. this is what fits. This is what works. This is what's real for me. And so from there, I mean, I got my bachelor's of religious education and did my internship up in North Battleford. We were
where you met the one of the coolest people you'll ever meet.
Yeah, I know. Frank's awesome. He's and Steven, I mean, he's probably
so
my best
many
friend these
people.
days. Yeah. Also, Al and his family are also wonderful people, and I thoroughly love them.
I'm a good hugger. That's about all I got going.
Oh, that's honestly the reason that you're one of my favorite people, because there's so few of us that are good huggers.
Without being creepy.
Oh, I know. Well, sometimes I'm creepy on purpose, especially to the people who really don't like hugs, just because it's hilarious. And I'm a jerk that way. Yeah. But anyway, I did my internship in North Battleford. Did 2 years at a church in Edmonton as the youth and community outreach pastor, and then back in North Battleford as the associate pastor for 10 years. And now I am not a pastor in Saskatoon. I teach first aid at First Aid for Life. So if you're listening to this and you're in the area and you need your first aid certification, you should come to us. I'm totally going to give a plug for the company that I work for.
Do it.
I preach at Martensville Alliance Church on Sundays, and I clean elementary and high schools as a casual custodian for the public and Catholic school division. And I cook and I clean.
You clean toilets.
I do, yes, and mop floors, and I cook and I clean my house, and I try and make sure that all of my children are fed and watered and dressed appropriately.
Let's be honest. Aubrey just kind of gets to wear what she wants, right? Or do you
sometimes
have to monitor it?
She
has some wild choices, I'm assuming, right?
No, it's just more sometimes she'll put on some pants and they're fine, and then it's time to go to school and suddenly the pants aren't fine anymore. And so we got to change. Right, that kind of thing, right?
Yeah, I married one of those kind of girls.
Yeah, these were fine while I wasn't wearing socks, but now that I have to put socks on, these pants no longer fit right. So now we have to put on new pants. Okay. We go with the flow.
6-year-olds are awesome.
Yeah.
Well, that's a pretty good story.
Yeah. So I mean, the whole thing. I mean, Jesus told us to go to Saskatoon for my wife Rachel to do her master's, and that was a very clear thing for us. And if we want to talk about that later, we can. Or that can be a whole other.
Yeah. No. Thing. Well, we can move into that, and that's one of the things I want to get to. Is I'll lead us into it a bit with a thought that I shared on my Facebook, I think a year ago, maybe 2 years ago. It was while I was reading the book of Acts, and I'm reading that again, and I got to the same verse again, where the disciples are teaching, and everyone's like the religious leaders and educated men are like, how are these men doing all this and speaking with such authority? They're just a bunch of Galilean fishermen that have no education.
Mm-hmm.
And literally that's what Jesus picked. So then I asked the question on my Facebook years ago, if Jesus only chose uneducated working guys to be his disciples, why do we insist on only hiring people for our pastors who are educated, like church kids? You know, I didn't word it that way exactly, but
yeah.
Like, you literally can't get a job as a pastor unless you have a bachelor's degree. Pretty much, right?
Not in our denomination.
At least in
anyway,
Canada. Yeah, in most big denominations, you can't just be a pastor if you're a guy who's a mechanic.
Yeah.
And I asked that question, I wondered why. And I didn't mean it in a snotty way, because I'm definitely not anti-education.
Right.
But I want to know what you think of that, because the church you were formerly at, now my wife still works at, and they're hiring a guy who, fresh out of high school, went to Bible school, now he's going to be a pastor.
Mm-hmm.
And so, how is that good for church culture, good for the church to have men like that as our only standard for and I'm not trying to diss it because you are
No,
that, and I love
I am
you
that,
to
and I
death.
want to
So
go back into that.
I want to, so I want to know what your thoughts are on that. I know that we can have this conversation without you being offended. I don't think I could ask anyone else this stuff.
No, that's fair. I think whenever a church hires somebody, they're not just looking to hire the education part of it. But as an organization, a church also has a responsibility to make sure that their leaders are trained well, because those of us who teach are held to a higher standard. And they don't want to set somebody up to fail. And they also don't want... we all know of people who have misinterpreted scripture, and it can get sometimes really bad, right?
Mm-hmm.
And as an organization, I mean, the church doesn't want to be that group of people that everybody looks to and says, hey, they teach this over there, right? You want to make sure that you're orthodox. You want to make sure that the person knows what they're talking about before they start teaching people. So in that sense, I would say that it's good to make sure, at least at a very basic level, that the person that you're wanting to lead the church in understanding scripture has an understanding of scripture. And that understanding includes cultural context, historical context, things along those lines, understanding of genre, right? We've all heard of people who have taken things out of context, right? There's lots of people take verses out of context, and not even just out of context, but they say this means this, and you're like, well, no, that's not what it means. I don't know where you're getting that. Right.
Yeah,
so you want to avoid that. If you're setting somebody up as a leader and you're paying them money to lead your organization in a certain way, you want to make sure that you're not screwing yourselves over by hiring somebody who doesn't know what they're talking about. So in that sense, I would say that it's good. And so the education portion of it is important, but there's also the cultural fit of the person themselves. Right? You want to make sure that the person is going to have the ability to have a good rapport with the congregation, with the people, that they understand how. Honestly, public speaking is something that a lot of people need to learn how to do. Especially the way that our churches are structured here in North America, specifically in Canada.
See, and that's kind of what I want to get at too. So, church culture and the way church, and I agree with you, it requires that. It requires us to hire people that so we know what we're getting, right?
Yeah.
So they went to this school, and we know that they're not going to come up and start, snake handling.
Yeah.
They're not going to bring out a bunch of poisonous snakes and start teaching garbage.
And that's what we want to weed out, right?
People. Or, so that makes sense. But that's in order to maintain what we have. Or is it not? Is it because
not necessarily?
This is the way I see it. It's if we want the church to grow past what it is now, or to change into something new, or to adapt,
we need some snake handlers.
No, we need something other than what we have. So there was a religious system at the time in Acts 2 that basically crucified Jesus, and he had to turn it on its head, and he chose men that could do that.
Which is interesting.
They were diverse. There were some that had education and stuff too.
See, but
some were fishermen, and some were.
We say unschooled ordinary men, but really what that means is that they didn't study to become scribes and teachers of the law.
Yeah.
And rabbis. That's all it means, because
it doesn't mean they're dumb or nothing.
No, the basic education of a boy in that culture at that time was, by the time you were, I think it was 13 years old, you had the first 5 books of the Torah, like you had the Torah memorized. That was part of your basic education. So everybody had that, right? It was only after after that, you at that point, when you would begin doing your apprenticeship with whatever, or if you were really good at it, certain rabbis would come and take you under their wing and start teaching you to memorize various different other things. But everybody understood. Everybody had a very good grasp of scripture at the time, because that was part of.
I don't have the Torah
I don't
memorized.
have the Torah memorized, right? Like so to say
I
that
can't remember a shopping list.
Right. So to say that someone's that they were unschooled ordinary men just means that they weren't trained as scribes. That doesn't mean that they weren't educated.
So what was the difference then? Why did Jesus choose them?
Why did Jesus choose them? Because
and why do we think
scribes.
Jesus is choosing people nowadays? Like, so a brand new pastor, we go through a hiring process. They come down and they talk, and we see if we like them or not. We know they come from such and such a school. And then God tells us or calls us and calls him or something, and then they become a pastor. How is that process like what I get? Like, I'm not trying to pick things apart or
I realize
I just
that.
like, what is because I think, I'll be honest, I think something has to break somewhere, because this whole COVID experience with churches has proven that we're not really good at adapting, and then they're still crying to make everything just like it was.
Right,
Let's
which
get
I don't
back
think is
to
actually
normal.
going.
And I think the
normal
Lord's
was never
calling us
working.
to
That's the
something
problem.
better. Yeah, let's not do status quo. Let's shake things up a bit. And I'm not saying God made COVID, or I'm just saying that it's an opportunity that's being wasted to really transform what we're doing as a church. Like, maybe we're called to more than just doing a service every week and a one on Wednesdays or whatever it is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think, let's see here. I think it is important for us to recognize the flaws in our structures and to make the necessary adjustments to fill those things in and be more discipleship focused. Rather, like, there are churches that are doing these kinds of things that you're talking about. They're just not the mega churches and the ones that everybody hears about and sees, because they're small, right? So that, but in terms of mainstream evangelical culture, if you want to go in that direction, I think that we do need to change how we do things, but I don't think that necessarily precludes the necessity of education. Now, when I'm talking about education, I don't necessarily mean that someone needs to have a bachelor's degree, right, in order to teach the Bible.
Some kind of.
But when we're hiring a pastor, you're not just hiring somebody who's going to teach the Bible. You're hiring a counselor. You're hiring. Now, I'm going to be the first person to say that as a pastor, you're not a trained counselor. So be very aware of what you can and can't do, and be willing to pass people off if you're in over your head before you get in over your head. But you're hiring somebody who is going to walk alongside all of these people. Pastors don't really have days off. They don't have time off. It's not a 9-to-5 job. You're trying to not running an organization isn't really the way I want to look at it. But I also don't want to say run, in charge of a family or something like that. But you're managing hundreds of people, and you're managing. Isn't it? Yeah, you're shepherding. Yeah, sure, we'll go with that word. But we're trying to avoid Christianese. So
no, but that's that's biblical, I guess.
But yeah, like what I'm saying is, like, you're trying to navigate people, hundreds of different people potentially, through a discipleship process to help them become more like Jesus. Do you want just some random person who doesn't know anything to be?
No. Well, of course
right?
Not.
You want.
That's why we develop intimacy and stuff in a group and understand where people are coming from. But
but that's also why the people who are leading that group should have a basic understanding of how to interpret biblical passages, so that you're not getting a bunch of wonky stuff out of a small group Bible study where everyone just says, "What does it mean to you?" Well, sure, it can mean this to you, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's what it means.
Yeah, and I think I hear what you're saying, but I think we've devalued what can happen by the power of the Holy Spirit in a group of people that are just reading the Bible and taking it for what it is in some cases.
Absolutely,
Obviously, there's some wild mystery kind of unexplained stuff, but if they're given the basis of like why we do what we do, this is done
Mhm.
in love and some of the foundational stuff. I don't think it can go too screwy, but then I don't
No, and
know.
that's
This
and
is all
that's what I mean.
theoretical to me because all I
Yeah,
know is the same system I left that you have a pastor that basically establishes what everyone's supposed to think and learn, and he decides what super church book we're going to go through or super church video we're going to go through, and then we all go through it
except that
and follow along with whatever we're supposed to learn.
right, but even within that structure, you're forgetting the multiple small groups that were a part of that, who were all doing their own things. But someone's managing that too, and that was one of the
Yeah.
things that I was managing to make sure
Yeah, you had to
that
choose the leaders of the
that
keep
we
track
trust the
of it
people.
anyway.
Yeah, we have to keep track of who's leading and make sure that we trust the people who are leading those groups. Make sure we understand the dynamics of those groups so we can help those leaders when they run into extra grace required people, or even if
Which I found
when
out was me.
yeah, if you don't know who that is in your group, you are that person.
Which is me. Yeah,
Yeah, I
usually.
mean, let's be honest, Al. Our small group was everyone. We were all extra grace required people.
Yeah, that's true.
Except my wife. She was the one who gave us all extra grace because she is objectively better than all of us.
Indeed.
But anyway, yeah. But I mean, we have all of those small groups that we had in the church that were all doing different things. Yes, the Sunday morning had a specific flavor and feel to it, but that wasn't the only teaching that was happening over the course of the week.
Yeah.
Youth group was going through something very different, and each of the small groups within the youth group were dealing with different things based on the age and the stage of life and the people that were a part of that group. So there's lots of other stuff happening. You saw the Sunday morning stuff because that was what you were a part of.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we run into problems a lot of the time, because people see the one thing that they're a part of and they say this must be everything that there is.
That's a really good point.
So much more. There's so much more that's going on that a lot of people don't know. Go ahead, ask your wife.
We get blinders, right? Yeah. Well, she's not allowed to tell me stuff for the most part, and I don't want to get her in trouble.
Yeah, I was going to say that can sometimes be a good thing and sometimes be a bad thing, because there's sometimes a lot of stuff going on that we don't know that we probably should know, and then there's stuff that isn't going, that where there's really good things that are happening that we aren't aware of, because sometimes when a church gets to a certain size, we end up compartmentalizing and siloing, which is bad. And I'm going to agree that there are some things within the way that we structure church where each ministry does its own thing and nobody knows what's going on. And so you only see the part that you're a part of, but you think that that's the whole. And I think that is where we really need what COVID has done, or should help us with, is to recognize there's so much more to this than the one thing that I've been a part of. And we need to be more open and understanding what else is happening so that it can inform our whole view of church rather than just the one part that we always see.
That's really good.
If that makes sense.
No, you know what? No, that makes more than sense. That actually has my brain spinning a little bit. Because I'll admit that I do have blinders, and I think most of us do about things, which can directly relate to how we read the Bible even.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
If you come to the scriptures with your preconceived notion or looking for something to back up what you already think, which I did for decades, and never seeing the other end of things. And there's so much more there. There's so much mystery in the scripture that is supposed to be mystery, that is supposed to have you looking forward in faith instead of standing on a foundation of your knowledge. Yeah, and the church is the same way. That makes sense to me.
Yep, and I can tell you from experience in that church, at least, that not everybody agreed all the time on everything, and there were some wonderful conversations. that happened as pastors, between pastors and congregants, where we had opportunities to like walk people through things that you'd never know because it's private stuff, right? So we're not going to like come out on Sunday morning and be, hey, I had this conversation with this person this week and boy, were they off base. And so I fixed them, or the other way around, right? We're not going to talk about that.
No.
Right. So I mean, there's always so much more going on. And just because the pastor isn't, has a particular thing that he's focusing on doesn't mean that everybody in the congregation needs to focus on that one thing either, which is why, at least in the church in North Battleford that we were both a part of at one time, we let the small groups figure out what they wanted based on where they were at, and we resourced to help them find the right things for where they were at, rather than saying, well, you need to do this and this is the pathway that you need to do in order for you to grow. We'd leave that up to the groups, and we'd help them figure, if they didn't know, we'd help them figure, okay, well, this seems to be where you're at. Seems to be what the next step would be. Are some options for you. Try one and see what works. Right.
Sounds wishy-washy to me, Mike.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. That's really what our whole thing is.
That's really good. That's really good.
Yeah,
well, you know what? I don't want to stop talking to you, but I think, do you have anything else you want to say before we go? Before we sum this all up? Some kind of final word?
Some kind of final word. When I talk education, I don't necessarily mean formal education, but if you're not willing to put in the work to understand the genre, understand the context, understand what the author originally meant to the people he was talking to and how they would have received it, you really don't have any leg to stand on in terms of teaching. You shouldn't be teaching anybody else if you're not willing to put in the work yourself.
You're in the wrong job.
Yeah, and not even in the job, like as even as a ministry leader who's doing it for free, like a volunteer or a small group leader, right?
Yeah.
If you shouldn't be telling people, you shouldn't be teaching other people what you think if you haven't figured out whether what you think actually makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's like my push is always about transformation and being changed, and but letting God change the way you think and those things. And if I'm the most rigid person that never adapts or listens to other opinions or ideas, whatever, I have to apply that. You have to,
And one caveat on all of that is, just because you're educated doesn't mean you know everything.
Yeah.
All right. So just because if you do end up going in the professional ministry direction or whatever, just because you have a bachelor's or a master's or even a doctorate doesn't mean that you understand everything perfectly. And there's always room to grow. And as soon as you lose that, you grow stagnant, and then you probably shouldn't be teaching anymore there either.
No, we can't all be Rachel Magnus.
It's true.
She's only one.
She is.
Okay. Well, that was really good, Mike. I want to thank you for being here, for being honest.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And I don't think I could have this conversation with any other pastor, because we're close friends and we know we love each other.
And I'm not a pastor anymore.
Yeah, that's true. But you also know that I'm not trying to hook you into saying something, or
you're not trying to do a gotcha.
The church report. And you know that just because I'm not presently attending a church, that you know that I believe in the church and
absolutely
love Jesus and want to see the church grow, even though I'm not in an organized one right now.
Your church looks different now than it has in the past. Yeah,
my church is nerds online.
There you go.
Till COVID's done and I can actually.
Then it'll be nerds in person.
That's right. So, well, this is the More About Jesus podcast. I've been talking to Mike Magnus, my friend. He lives in Saskatoon. We're going to have more of these kind of interviews, so listen for them, watch for them. I'll be back next week with my cohort, Daniel Dunbar. But until then, check us out on Discord. Look for More About Jesus on Discord. There's posts on Twitter on the More About Jesus Twitter that will lead you to our Discord. We're on YouTube. This won't be on YouTube, I don't think, but when I do interviews, because I don't know if anyone's going to have cameras or not, but that's all right. So thanks for listening, and I guess until next time, let's do all we can to be making our lives more about Jesus.